Thank you. So I'm happy to be with you today. We will discuss today chapter 1, questions by the sages, verses 4 to 11. That so I prepared these classes. I heard previous teachers on these classes and went into the commentaries of our acharyas. And for every hour class, I had 16 hours of preparation, so I hope I will be able to discuss these verses quite in depth. That you will see that I read from notes sometimes. This is my own preparation. That so I don't know since because Mother Prashanta was explaining you about the sloka assessment. How long were you already busy with that? Because we need a pause in time. That when did you start the class today? At what time? Someone want to answer that?
1 hour ago, Maharaj. We
One
started one
one hour
hour.
ago. Okay, then we will go for another half hour and then have a pause. I think if that's okay. Good. So, mukam karoti vachalam pungam langhayate girim yatkipatatam vande sigom tina tarinam. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Pastaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Namane Namaste Saraswata Deve Gauravani Pacharine Nirvishesha Sunyavadi Paskatyai Desatarine. So we will read text 4. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Namise Nimisaksatra Risayatsana Kadaya Shatram Svagaya Lokaya Sasrasamam Asata. Once in a holy place in the forest of Namisaranya, great sages headed by the sage Saunaka assembled to perform a great 1,000-year sacrifice for the satisfaction of the Lord and his devotees. So we have heard the first 3 verses of this chapter. The first verse defining the absolute truth. The second verse rejecting Kaitava Dharma, cheating religion. And the third verse was about the relishing of this transcendental literature. So, Srila Prabhupada, in the first paragraph of the purport, he gives a nice introduction that so I will read some parts of the purport, but you are supposed to have read them already. So, purport. The prelude of the Srimad Bhagavatam was spoken in the previous 3 slokas. Now the main topic of this great literature is being presented. Srimad Bhagavatam, after its first recitation by Srila Sukadev Goswami, was repeated for the second time in Naimi Saranya. So in the previous verse we heard how Srila Vyasadeva invited us to taste the juice of Srimad Bhagavatam. So Lord Chaitanya also tasted this fruit and he distributed it. Of course, Lord Chaitanya teaches us how to perform devotional service, but also Not to forget others also, that in the purport of text 4, Srila Prabhupada explains how the purpose of the Srimad Bhagavatam is to wake up the sleeping people to spiritual life. In the last paragraph of the purport, there it is said, in this age, the congregational chanting of the holy names of the Lord is the prescribed method for waking up. The ways and means are most scientifically presented by Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and intelligent persons may take advantage of his teachings in order to bring about a real peace and prosperity. Srimad Bhagavatam is also presented for the same purpose, and this will be explained more specifically later in the text. So we will hear in the verses today how the sages of Namisaranya put forward questions in the same mood of compassion for the fallen souls. In the first two questions, we will see the concern of the sages. We will see the concern of the sages for the benefit of humanity. That Srila Prabhupada explains in the purport that this forest of Namisaranya is the hub of the universe, and the hub of the wheel is Naimisaranya. So they wanted to sit there because the purpose of their sacrifice was for the pleasure of Krishna. Svargaya, who is glorified in heaven, and for Lokaya, which Srila Prabhupada translates as the devotees. So we are in paragraph 4. Srila Prabhupada mentions how the sages, how they are so concerned to perform acts to bring about peace in the world. So in the purport, there are sincere friends. They are sincere friends to all living entities, and at risk of great personal inconvenience, they are always engaged in the service of the Lord, for the good of all people. So this is Srimad Bhagavatam, for the welfare of all people. All the questions of Maharaj Parikshit, which we will hear later in the Bhagavatam, and all the questions of Vidura to Maitreya Muni, they are for the same purpose. The purpose is to pleasing the Lord, the devotees, and to help people. So we personally are also hoping, we are here all together, we will make together this sacrifice of hearing the Bhagavatam together. And we are also hoping that while doing this sacrifice, that the Lord will appear in our sacrifice of reciting and hearing Srimad Bhagavatam. I have a quote here from the Padma Purana. So, Lord Krishna says, I'm not in Vaikuntha. I'm not in the heart of the yogis. But I'm there where the devotees are hearing and chanting my glories. It's from the Padma Purana. So we have the great desire that Lord Krishna will appear also in the sacrifice that we are here performing. So one can say You are discussing Srimad Bhagavatam. We are discussing here Bhagavatam together. So what's the benefit for the whole world? So what is the use of this sacrifice? So what's your answer? You can write one line in the chat if you like. That what is the benefit for the whole world in what we are doing here? This sacrifice of reciting and hearing the Bhagavatam. So what's the use of this sacrifice? So what's the answer? So counteract the effects of Kali Yuga, Vaidyanath Prabhu says. Anita says for the peace and happiness of others. These were certainly concerns, of of the sages, and purifying the polluted atmosphere of the world, do good for people in general. It's for our own purification. These are all good reasons. But enlightenment, yes, okay. Purification, dissipate darkness, we are repeating things. Thank you very much for your comment. But overall, I would say they did it because it attracts the Lord's mercy. And when Krishna is pleased, then everyone is benefited because Krishna is the root of the tree. Then also the power of the demons, they will be curtailed. This vibration of reciting the Bhagavatam, it vibrates, this transcendental sound vibration vibrates throughout the entire universe. We see the six Goswamis. Six Goswamis were also working for the benefit of everyone. And they were sleeping and living under a different tree every night. They made such great contribution to humanity. And they gave us so many books. When Srila Prabhupada was lecturing at the Damodar temple, he was presenting at that time Nectar of Devotion, that chapter 2. Srila Prabhupada was describing how Gopal Bhatta Goswami would recite Srimad Bhagavatam and Rupa and Sanatana Goswami were listening. They were listening, sitting and writing, and Jiva Goswami was writing Krishna Sandarbha. Srila Prabhupada said, and in this way the entire movement was started, sitting and discussing together. Srila Prabhupada was sitting in the Radha Damodar temple, writing Srimad Bhagavatam. Before that, before he came to America, he was writing the Srimad Bhagavatam, and he wrote his first canto and brought it with him on the Jaladuta. These were the first parts of the first canto. He printed the first canto in 3 volumes. Yes, and he showed on the cover, the material, on the cover, the spiritual world and all the incarnations. You have this here. Yes, it showed all the different incarnations in these planets, and and the leaders of the Vaikuntha planets with their names. And now we will hear how the sages will first worship Sutta Goswami. Text 5. Ta ekada tu munaya pratarhuta utachnaya Satkritam sutam ashinam paprachur idam adaret. Translation that one day, after finishing their morning duties by burning a sacrificial fire and offering a seat of esteem to Srila Sutta Goswami, the great sages made inquiries with great respect about the following matter. Srila Prabhupada says in the purport, the morning is the best time to perform spiritual services. Srila Vyasadeva used to get up in the morning and worship Saraswati and perform his sadhana. So the sages got up early and performed their sacrifice and sat down to hear the Srimad Bhagavatam. Also, we will hear in the 10th canto, Krishna would get up early in the morning and meditate on himself. He also performed sadhana. That in Srimad Bhagavatam, 3rd canto, chapter 21, verses 45 to 47 in the purport, there Srila Prabhupada writes, we have the Sanskrit word in this verse, huta hutanaya, burning sacrificial fire. The word in the verse in the 3rd canto, chapter 25, verses 45-47 is very similar there. It said, Huta asanam, being offered oblations in sacrificial fire. So Srila Prabhupada explains there that Kardama Muni, who was a brahmachari, he was offering oblations. Srila Prabhupada writes, those engaged in brahmacharya cannot sleep until 7 or 9 o'clock in the morning. They must rise early in the morning, at least 1.5 hours before the sun rises, and offer oblations, or in this age, they must chant the holy name of the Lord, Hare Krishna. So that is our sacrifice. We got up early in the morning, did our sacrifice, and now we are together to hear Srimad Bhagavatam. So Srila Prabhupada did not make this up. Even Srila Vyasadeva and Lord Krishna got up early in the morning and hear Srimad Bhagavatam. So text 5 says that Sutta Goswami is a qualified speaker. So Sutta Goswami is a representative of Vyas, and therefore he can speak. The speaker has the responsibility not to concoct, but to follow the previous acharyas. The purport also mentions the responsibility of the hearers. What is the responsibility of the hearers of Srimad Bhagavatam? It's being submissive, non-challenging, that respect for the speaker, for the subject matter, trying to find the truth. So, if we hear properly and taste properly, then we can hear the fruit of Srimad Bhagavatam. Now in verse 6, there we will hear more about the qualifications of the speaker. Text 6. Rishaya uchu tvayakalu puranani setihasani sanaga akyatan yapi Titani Dharmashastrani Yan Yuta. The sages said, respected Sutta Goswami, you are completely free from all vice. You are well versed in all the scriptures, famous for religious life, and in the Puranas and the histories as well. You have gone through them under proper guidance and have also explained them. So we have 3 more qualifications here. Free from vice, the first one, and well versed in the Shastra. In the Shastras, the second one. And the third is having heard and explained the Shastras. 3 qualifications for the speaker. So we have the Dharma Shastras and the Puranas. They are in the category of Smriti. So Sutta learned his scriptures from his father. In the purport, Srila Prabhupada writes, the Acharya must be well acquainted with all these literatures. To hear and explain them is more important than reading them. One can assimilate the knowledge of the revealed scriptures only by hearing and explaining. Having called by hearing and explaining, so hearing, that's called Shravana, explaining is Kirtan. These 2 processes, Shravan and Kirtan, are of primary importance, Srila Prabhupada writes. So what does it mean that hearing and explaining is more important than reading? So why is that hearing and explaining more important than reading? You can again write 1 line in the chat if you like. I repeat the question. So why is hearing and explaining more important than reading? Because if we hear and explain, we can better remember. That's a valid point. Any other suggestions?
Hare Krishna Maharaj, Dhamma Pranam.
Hare Krishna.
Yeah, hearing is important because when we read, we use our mind, but when we are hearing from the acharyas, and their understanding is more better than us, as they have also heard from the previous acharyas.
Yeah, but the point is here really, why is that hearing and explaining more important than reading? If we read also from the acharyas. In the chat we see, writing is only a recording of what is heard, because it is heard from a person and explained to another person. Purification of both the listener and the teacher, yes, because of the sound vibration. Hearing and explaining, then we remember that before we speak, we must understand. Yes, Krishna is present in the sound. All interesting and good points.
To avoid speculation, Maharaj.
To avoid speculation, but when you read Srila Prabhupada's books, it's not speculation. Why is hearing and discussing them better? Because the knowledge comes down to the disciplic succession, originally by hearing. By hearing we can receive the knowledge from the bona fide source. Ajahn Prabhu says understanding, that's a very important point. Well, it is, Vedas are coming through sound vibration. Yeah, the sound vibration that is very powerful. That is certainly also a good reason. But it is a spiritual law. If you hear it and then you have to explain it, you must have understood it. Otherwise, you cannot explain it. That's not possible. That an understanding comes many times to discussion. With the devotees comes a deeper understanding. That you must be able to understand it, to explain it. If you do kirtan, you must have smaranan also, thinking about the subject matter. So, most students, and I think that comes from Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj, I heard him explaining that in a seminar. He said, students, they learn and assimilate 10% only from what they read. 10%. And 30% of what they hear. And 60% of what they can hear and see. And 90% of what they explain. And that's interesting. And what is that process? We will learn in the third canto, teachings of Lord Kapila Dev. Chapter 25 is about devotional service. And in that chapter 25, this verse 25 is a verse quoted so many times by Prabhupada. Satam prasangam mama virya samvido bhavantrit karna rasayana kata. Tatyo sanatap asya papavarya vartmani shradaratir bhaktir anukramishati. So in association of pure devotees, discussion of the pastimes of the Supreme Lord is very pleasing and satisfying to the ear and the heart. By cultivating such knowledge, one gradually becomes advanced on the path of liberation and therefore thereafter is freed and his attraction becomes fixed. Then real devotion and devotional service begins, it says. So this verse explains what happens when you discuss the Lord's pastimes in the association of devotees and hear and chant. Then you will relish. It is rasayana. Rasayana. So in India you can find different types of rasayan, right? The Brahma rasayan for the brain. But now we have here the Bhagavat rasayan. We drink it to the ears and it goes to the heart. Then Krishna is pleased and he throws all dirt from our heart. Then one will swiftly progress from the path from Shraddha to Rati to Prema. So discussion means also sharing realizations. And then you get realization also, just by participating in that. So in text 6, their next verse, we will hear about the 6 darshans. Text 6. Isaya uchu tvaya kalu puranani seti haesani sanaga akyatana aditani dharmashastrani yanyuta. The sages said, respected Sutta Goswami, you are completely free from all vice. You are well versed in the scriptures, famous for religious life, and in the Puranas and the histories as well. You have gone through them under proper guidance and have also explained them. So in the text 6, that it's mentioned about the 6 darshans that but to understand this, I would refer you to the 10th canto, chapter 87, text 25, purport. There they are all explained. It is explained there what is erroneous in the 6 darshans, what's incorrect, and what is accepted as authoritative, or points we use to support Vaishnava philosophy. Text 7. In text 7, Srila Prabhupada discussions in the purport. It's there in the purport about these 6 darshans. Text 7. Yani Veda Vidam Shesto Bhagavam Badarayana Anye Samunya Sutta Paravara Vido Vidu. Being the eldest learned Vedantist or Sutta Goswami, you are acquainted with the knowledge of Vyasadeva, who is the incarnation of Godhead. And you also know other sages who are fully versed in all kinds of physical and metaphysical knowledge. In the purport, Srila Prabhupada writes, one can sit on the Vyasa-san only after being conversant in all systems of philosophy, so that one can present fully theistic views on the Srimad Bhagavatam in defiance of all other systems. I remember studying the 6 darshans in depth in the Bhaktivedanta College in Radhadesh, and we went through all of them and pointed out their deficiencies. Anyway, this is a too deep discussion to go in here. But like I said, you find all the information in the 10th canto, chapter 87, verse 25, purport. So, but the main point here is Srila Prabhupada wanted us to learn the philosophy so that we would be able to meet all kinds of opposition. In 1975, Srila Prabhupada was talking about the Yamadutas who got defeated by the Vishnudutas. They went to Yamaraj and said, "What is this? Is there something higher than you?" Then Yamaraj had to preach to them, "No, Narayan is higher." Srila Prabhupada said we should know the philosophy, because we may be challenged. Somebody may ask, are you just selling the book? Do you know what's in the book? So we have to know the philosophy. In the audience of Namisaranya, there were so many different sages and philosophers. So many of these great personalities, propounders of these 6 darshans, like Gautama, Kanada, Kapila, Patanjali, Jaimini, Astavakra, many of them were hearing together with Maharaj Pariksit from Sukadev Goswami. So many different sages and philosophers. So Sutta had to speak in a way that was relevant to all of them, because they were sitting in the audience. If you don't know the 6 darshans, so again you can check that in that verse in the 10th canto. Darshan means to see the truth, to see, having darshan. So they have different ideas of what is the truth. Text 8. So how it is possible for Sutta Goswami to know so much? We'll read text 8. Vetatvam sonyatat sarvam tatvatas tat anugrahat proyoshnitasya sisasya guravo guyam apyuta. And because you are submissive, your spiritual masters have endowed you with all the favors bestowed upon a gentle disciple. Therefore, you can tell us what you have scientifically learned from them. So, this is the key for opening the doors to the higher levels of realization. The key is, as Lord Chaitanya said, Trinatapi Snitchana Taravi Saisnana Amana Namanadana Kirtanya Sada Hari. So because if you are not humble, how can you learn anything? So one Digvijay, a conqueror of all directions, was trying to defeat everyone, that he came to see Rupa and Sanat Goswami to debate with them. And Sanatan Goswami asked him, "What do you want?" He said, sign a paper that I've defeated you. And Sanatan Goswami said, "No problem, I will sign the paper." Then Jiva Goswami got upset and he went challenging the Digvijay and defeated him. So if you approach a guru such as Sanatan Goswami in a challenging mood, then you will not get any knowledge. The Digvijay got the autograph of Sanatan Goswami, but that's all he got. But he was not going to use it in a proper way. Now verse 9. In verse 9 the sages will ask their first question. But before we go into that, we will have a pause of 10 minutes and we will resume at 5 to 7. So in 12 minutes from now. So take a break, get up, stretch yourself, do whatever you need in that period, and we come back again at 5 to 7, and that's 2:25 Central European time for me. So see you in 10 minutes from now. Thank you. So Hare Krishna, we will resume now. So we were at text 9, the first question of the sages. Tatra tatranyasayusman bhavata yat finishitam pumsam ekantata shreyas tanna samsitum arasi. Please therefore, being blessed with many years, explain to us in an easily understandable way what you have ascertained to be the absolute and ultimate good for people in general. In the Sanskrit you have Ayushman, blessed with a long duration of life. Sutta had his blessings, had his blessing. How did he got this blessing? Romaharshan Sutta, his father, he had his benediction of Ayushman, but Balaram killed him. And then the sages got upset with Balaram, and they said, we gave him this benediction of Ayushman, and you killed him. And Balaram said, no problem, I will bring him back to life. The sages said, no, we don't want to nullify what you did, but just make sure that the benediction is still there. And then Balaram said, the son is the representative of the father, so he transferred the benediction to Sutta Goswami. So by that Sutta Goswami had Ayushman, a very long life. These sages, they were in knowledge. Actually, they could see the future. They could see the problems that Kali Yuga was going to bring. The degradation due to the influence of the lower modes, and they wanted to do something about it. Many may be able to see the future, but what can they do about it to stop it? But the Mahatmas, the great devotees, have the qualification to do something about it. They can do something to change the future, change and counteract the influence of Kali Yuga. Those who are in knowledge, the Brahmins and the Vaishyas, they have a responsibility, is to change the direction of society. They ask ekantata in the word-for-word translation, absolutely. Ekantata means also tell us one thing, eka, one thing. Because in this age no one can remember all these things. Don't tell us the step-by-step. Tell us the best benefit for all people. And they also said that it must be easy. Arasi or anyasa. Make it easy, because no one in this age is qualified. It is a problem to penetrate to bhakti, the mystery hidden in the Vedas. Bhakti is a mystery hidden in the Vedas. There is a verse in the Mahabharata spoken by Maharaj Yudhishthira on this. It is difficult to find the truth simply by dry argument, the logic. By argument, you will not be able to find the truth. If you study all the Vedas, it is very difficult to find the truth. So there are so many different scriptures, and there are so many philosophers. How can we find the truth? Where do we find the truth? In the heart of a pure devotee. That is where we find the truth. Only they know Krishna. That is where Krishna is. Therefore, Majjena Katasa Panta. We should follow in the footsteps of the Mahajans. There is this first famous verse from the Mahabharata, which most of you may know. Tarkopatishta Shrutaya Vibhina Nasafrishiryasya Matam Nabinam Dharmasya Tattvam Nitam Guyayam Majjana Jenagata Sapanta. Dry arguments are inconclusive. A great personality whose opinion does not differ from others is not considered a great sage. Simply by studying the Vedas, which are variegated, one cannot come to the right path by which religious principles are understood. The solid truth of religious principle is hidden in the heart of the unadulterated self-realized person. Unadulterated. Srila Prabhupada used to say unalloyed. An alloy means a mixture of different metals, but unalloyed steel is pure steel without mixture. So this is about pure bhakti without anything else. No karma, no jnana. Consequently, as the Shastras confirm, one should accept whatever progressive path the Mahajans advocate. This is from the Mahabharata, the Vana Parva, 313, chapter 313, verse 117. And that's quoted in Chaitanya Charitamrita Madhya Lila, chapter 17, verse 186. It's spoken by Yudhishthira Maharaj. So, when Mother Narayani, who had been Pujari in the beginning of the 70s in Calcutta and traveled all over India, she wrote in the early 1970s, or she said in the early 1970s with Srila Prabhupada in India, there was a small girl, Saraswati. Saraswati had this little deity of Krishna, and she had the deity always with her. She was very attached to the deity. When Saraswati was out of the room, Srila Prabhupada took the deity and put it behind his back. When Saraswati came back, then she was looking. She was saying, "Where is my Krishna?" She was in anxiety. The point Srila Prabhupada was trying to prove was, what is separation from Krishna? She called out, "Where is my Krishna? Where is my Krishna?" Then her mother, Malati, she said, "Who has Krishna?" Then Saraswati said, "Prabhupada has Krishna." And she went before Prabhupada and said, "Give me Krishna." So, and it is a fact. Srila Prabhupada has Krishna. That was Prabhupada's blessings. He is giving us Krishna in so many forms. The sages are only asking for the best thing. What's the best thing? They are not asking for the second thing or the second best thing or the third best thing. Verse 10, next verse, is one of the verses. Probably you have to learn. That's usually that's a memorization verse for the Bhaktivaibhava. This verse 10. So it speaks about the disqualification of the people of this age of Kali Yuga. Prayanal Payusa Savya Kalavasmin Chirejana Mamanda Sumanda Matayo Manda Bhakya Yupadrutaha. O learned one, in this iron age of Kali, men have but short lives. They are quarrelsome, lazy, misguided, unlucky, and above all, always disturbed, always disturbed. That so Srila Prabhupada writes that let's see if I find in the purport. It is not because of insufficient food, but because of irregular habits. Srila Prabhupada writes that by keeping regular habits and eating simpler food, any man can maintain his health. Overeating, over sense gratification, over dependence on another's mercy are artificial standards of living sap the very vitality of human energy. Therefore, the duration of life is shortened. So if you work the whole day before the computer, you feel it takes the energy away from you, right? It's artificial living. One feels always tired. The sages are asking for the benefit of us, fallen conditioned souls. There are always in this Kali Yuga fights and wars going on. Manda, they are lazy. Yeah, lazy means slow in spiritual life. But they work hard for material life. There are so many bogus philosophies in Kali Yuga. Some think, I'm alright, you are alright. People do not care to inquire about who am I? And what is the goal of my life? When they have some interest, it's then Sumanda Matayo. They are misguided. So many cheaters come to cheat. And it's true in this age, nobody is really inquiring about who am I? Where do I come from? Where do I go? That when I was 7 years old, I asked my mother, where do I come from? And my mother said, Pooh, we found you in a cauliflower. Of course, I was 6 years old. She asked me that question. Yeah, I asked her that question. But then when I was 10, 11 years old, I asked my mother again, all these old people, when they die, where do they go? And she looked at me with great concern. She put the palm of her hand on my forehead and said, are you not feeling well today? You can't ask this question in this age of Kali Yuga. No interest in self-realization. That, yes, Lord Chaitanya, he made it easy. He made it so easy, just chant. Srila Prabhupada said, even the dog can take part in the chanting. When I did 3 times the complete, one time completed, the Vrajamandal Parikram, 30 days. The second time I didn't finish completely. Third time also not, but I did big part. And you see many times dogs are following the Harinam and the Parikram. And some dogs, they were taking shelter between the devotees because other dogs were barking at them. And when we were stopping for hearing the pastimes, These dogs were also stopping, lying down and listening. That when we took prashad, when they took prashad, interesting that dogs following the Harinam, but we have no attraction in this age. That's the problem. Previously, everyone could remember what they have heard once. Now, that's Shrutidar. Once hearing, once remembering. Now it's all gone. If someone has money in this Kali Yuga, means that is considered cultured. When Srila Prabhupada was staying in John Lennon's house in Tittenhurst in 1969, in his living room there was a picture of John Lennon and his wife completely naked. Srila Prabhupada said, just see, the culture is so low class. And reporters are coming to him to ask him so many important questions. This simply because one has money, is considered high class. Justice will be on the basis of one's money and power. So these are predictions, they are in the 12th canto of this Bhagavatam. It's all there. Business will depend on the seed. A man will be known as a Brahmin just by wearing a Brahmin dread. That's the state of affairs in Kali Yuga. A person's spiritual position will be determined by his dress. If you wear saffron and you have matted locks, you will get great respect in India, a great yogi. Marriage will be arranged just by verbal agreement. It is even worse than the Srimad Bhagavatam says. A place of pilgrimage will consist of no more than taking a reservoir of water. This is what Mother Narayani said. She said that in 2008 or something, that this must be 2002. She gave this in 2002. She presented this first canto. So that's nearly 20 years ago. She said, people are going to Hardwar to bath in the Ganga, but the Ganga flows in Calcutta. They go up to Rishikesh and Hardwar, up there for the summer. The ritual is, you go to the holy place, you take your bath, you have your picture taken, and then you go to eat to one of the places. On pilgrimage, you are supposed to inquire from the sadhus. Long hair in Kali Yuga is very beautiful, in 12 countries said. Filling the belly is the goal of life. So, that's the state of affairs in Kali Yuga. And now we will read the last verse of today. That Burini Buri Karmani Shotafyani Vibhagasa Attasado Trayatsaram Samutritya Manisaya Prohi Bhadraya Bhutanam Yanatma Shrupa Siddhati. There are many varieties of scriptures. In all of them there are many prescribed duties, which can be learned only after many years of study in their various divisions. Therefore, sage, please select the essence of all these scriptures and explain it for the good of all beings, that by such instruction their hearts may be fully satisfied. So what's the essence of all scriptures? Before we heard the first question, what's the Shreya, what's the ultimate good for everyone? Now, what's the essence of the scripture? So Again, these sages, they understand the condition of the people and they ask for the essence of the scriptures. And we will hear that answer in the next chapter, in verse 1 to 6. So vaipum saparo dharmo yato bhaktiadoksha ahaitu kapatiyata yatma shubhashidati. It will speak about parodharmo, paradharma, that the highest dharma. So there are so many scriptures and we cannot understand the essence. But in the next verse already, the sages will give a hint of the essence. Chanting the holy name and serving the devotees. We are doing this. We are hearing Srimad Bhagavatam here in association of devotees. So Sutta Goswami, he will explain that bhakti is the only way to help humanity. In his vision, he saw the suffering living entities and he knew that the only solution is bhakti. Srila Prabhupada in 1973 in London, he said, "It is very, very difficult to uplift the people in this age." And he quoted this verse, Manda Samanda Matayo. The people don't understand. Only a very fortunate person will understand. I am eternal. But no, they go simply for sense gratification for the body. Srila Prabhupada said, even in our ISKCON we see that devotees have a hard time to get up in the morning. So unfortunate, condemned. Therefore, the Guru Maharaj of my Guru Maharaj, Gaura Kishore Das Babaji, he did not preach, he was disgusted. He said, I have no power to reform. But my spiritual master Bhaktisiddhanta Sarasvati Maharaj, he was preaching. He wanted us to do the same. He was very merciful. Bhaktisiddhanta Sarasvati Maharaj was very kind and compassionate. Nobody could go to the West like Srila Prabhupada did, in the midst of such degradation. And we see this mood of Prabhupada and the mood of these sages. The sages had the same mood, and therefore they are asking, what's the essence of the scriptures? How can I make it easy for the people in Kali Yuga? So we went over the section of today that we heard two questions of the sages. Two questions that the questions were, what is the Shreya, the ultimate benefit for everyone? And what's the essence of the scriptures? Because in Kali Yuga we are short-lived, that we must get immediately to the essence, that not losing time. That was their compassion, their feeling of compassion of these great sages who could see the future, that and the coming degradation. We are at the beginning of Kali Yuga here. So, are there any questions on this section, or that you can raise your hand or write in the chat? So, we will start with Vaidyanath Prabhu. Please unmute and.
Yes, Maharaj, thank you for your thorough explanations. When going through these verses, I noted a contradiction between Srimad Bhagavatam 112, which says, completely rejecting all religious activities, and it is for those who are mature in God realization. Um, so it's very high claim, very high demand on the audience of the Srimad Bhagavatam.
Mm.
Then the verses we were reading today, 10, 11, that people are so unfortunate. So, and this Bhagavatam should be for those people also, for those fallen people of Kali Yuga. So, in the verse 2, it says it should be for a purified, liberated souls, and then here it says should be for the very unqualified people. So, Maharaj, please clarify.
Yeah, that's a very nice point you are making. So it is also mentioned in the conclusive words of the Bhagavatam that that's in the 12th canto at the end. There it said, Srimad Bhagavatam Pranam Amalam Yat Vaishnavam Priyam Yasmin Paramahamsyam. So it says this Bhagavatam is, describes the pure and supreme knowledge of the Paramahamsas. The Paramahamsas, the most pure. So the Bhagavatam is for the Paramahamsas. But interesting is that because the Paramahamsas, in verse 3 we have heard, they are relishing the Bhagavatam. But at the same time, when we hear the Bhagavatam, we become purified. It gives us also the process to become purified. The hearing, chanting, remembering of the Bhagavatam is the ultimate process, which is called here Bhagavad Dharma. And it's the process, but it's the means to become purified, but it is also the goal. The goal is to become absorbed always in the Bhagavatam. And that is very interesting, that it is also the process that so Srila Prabhupada wanted us to understand these points from different angles of vision. So there are here different angles of vision, and this is one angle of vision. It is a process also, but it is meant for those who are pure in heart. Therefore the Bhagavatam is structured as such that the first 9 cantos are preparing us to come to the Paramahamsa stage. If we follow it verse by verse and have realizations, then we come to that point of Paramahamsas. So it gives us a process. The process is first, especially the first canto helps us to understand Sambandha Jnana. When we speak about the Vedas, in the Vedas, you have these different parts. If you have the Vedanta Sutra, the first book is about Sambandha Jnana, the second and the third book is about Abhideya Jnana, and the third book is about Prayojan. And we have that also in the Bhagavatam. We will see. First, we have to learn about Krishna. Who is Krishna? Who are we? What is devotional service? That's also taught. This Sambandha Jnana is taught to us in the first 2 cantos, really, of the Bhagavatam. And further also, Then we will learn in the second and the third canto how the creation comes, everything, how the creation comes from Krishna, how Krishna is everything. That so that helped in our Sambandha Gyan, re-establishing our relationship with Krishna. And this has three aspects. Who is Krishna? Who am I? And what is our relationship? And that's explained in the beginning, in the first cantos, up to the 9th canto even. But then in the 6th, in the 7th canto, we are going really into the Abhideya, pure devotional service by Prahlad Maharaj in the 7th canto, surrender to Bali Maharaj. So there we get the Abhideya, and then the 10th canto is the Prayojan. So it prepares us to come to that Paramahamsa level. But if you are on the Paramahamsa level, and you read the first canto, you will read that from a Paramahamsa perspective. And the neophyte will see different. So, because the Bhagavatam, we will learn that at the end of the 3rd chapter in this canto, the third chapter, there Krishna, because that's one of the questions of the sages also. The sages say Krishna has gone, he has left us. Where will the people of Kali Yuga now get shelter? And the answer is the Bhagavatam, is the light in Kali Yuga, the torchlight. It is Krishna himself. It's non-different. And that is the point. If we come, when we become in contact with Krishna, we become purified. And when we are purified and we are in contact with Krishna, then we are in contact with Krishna and we are relishing transcendental bliss. So it's for the Paramahamsas and the neophytes, in that sense that it will make the neophytes also Paramahamsas in due course of time. So that's one perspective, Vaidyanatha Prabhu. Is that okay? Does that satisfy? Or do you have other points in mind?
Oh, thank you very much for the explanation. Good points, yes. Thank you.
Okay. Maybe Mother Ambika can speak.
Thank you very much, Maharaj. I wanted to ask a very simple question from this 119, where it says that spiritual well-being is automatically followed by material well-being. So could you explain what does it mean?
Yeah. Spiritual well-being is automatically followed by material well-being. If you become a devotee, then we explained you get up early in the morning, take a bath and so on, that you become more balanced in goodness. And when one is in goodness, then one is satisfied also on a material level. One who lives in goodness will usually have a longer life, a healthy life, because when one lives in goodness, that is good for one's material well-being also. Yes, that's one characteristic of the mode of goodness. One who is in the mode of goodness feels satisfied and happy in this world, and that's binding him to this world. So we will see in the 2nd chapter of this canto, Divinity and the Wife's Service, from verse 16 to 22, the whole process will be described, and we will discuss that first at length Tatorajastam obhava kamalabhasiyasate sitera navitam satve sat prashidati stitvi satve prashidati. So surely by this process of devotional service, which is leading us to the ultimate spiritual well-being, the modes of passion and ignorance, is surely the influence is destroyed, and one comes to goodness and one feels happy. And yes, that is good also for the body. The lifestyle in goodness gives us also on the level of the body satisfaction. That, of course, that does not mean that you will not get your karma, your bad karma, and so on. But it's good for your material well-being also. That's true. You feel satisfied that and peaceful in this world. Does that help to understand that, Morambika?
Yes, thank you.
Yeah. Acha Prabhu, yes, please speak.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, Dandavat Pranam. Thank you very much for taking us into the journey here. So one thing I wanted to share, there was some scientific study done a long time ago where they found out that most of the communication happens through body language when we are moving hands, face gestures, eye contact, which is 55% of the communication happens like that. And then 38% happen through pitch and tone, how high you speak, how quickly you speak, right. And then 7% happen through words. So when we are reading, we are missing pitch and tone, and we are missing the body language. But when we are hearing, the point you have raised, we have the pitch and tone component of it. And when the speaker is in sight, then you have the body language also involved in it. So there is a lot more, absorption of that transfer of knowledge through hearing as compared to reading. That's another perspective I wanted to.
That's a good point. Therefore, I appreciate if every time you can put on all your cameras that we see each other.
Yeah.
So that's also important. Of course, in transfer of spiritual knowledge, it facilitates it to a certain extent, but we will hear that the realization of transcendental knowledge is finally given by Krishna to the heart when he's pleased. And then we speak about realization. You have learning and you have realization. But the learning, the hearing, will facilitate this realization. There's a good point. Thank you for sharing that, Acharya.
Thank you, Maharaj.
So, Krishna Doya Prabhu, please.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. One of the symptoms in Kali Yuga is that merely by taking a bath, one thinks is fit to appear in public. But in this age, I think that is quite common. And we'd like to know what was the practices in the previous ages, that because we do not have that explanation.
Yeah. This is from the 10th canto, chapter 84:13. Lord Krishna speaks at Kurukshetra solar eclipse. Yasyatma buddhi kunepeti data case fatikala traatse baumarchati yatirta buddhi salinena kaitsit. Shachnesabi Jesus saiva gokara. One who identifies himself as the inert body composed of mucus, bile and air, who assumes his wife and family are permanently his own, who thinks as an earthen image or the land of his birth is worshipable, and who sees a place of pilgrimage as merely the water, but who never identifies himself, feel kinship with, worships, or even visits those who are wise in spiritual truth, such a person is no better than a cow or an ass. So it's meant for visiting pilgrimage. Pilgrimage is meant for visiting those who are wise in spiritual truth and hear from them. That is the purpose of pilgrimage, nothing else. That's the purpose. Hear from the pure devotees when you are on pilgrimage. That is what Krishna says at solar eclipse at Kurukshetra. Good, thank you. Advaita Krishna Prabhu, please speak. Are you hearing me, Advaita Krishna Prabhu? No. Seems no communication.
Maybe he's frozen. It looks like
Yeah,
that.
could be that. Okay, let's go to Nilamani Prabhu.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, then
Hare
with Pranam.
Krishna, Jai.
Hare Krishna. Maharaj, I had a question regarding the fourth verse, where it says that the great sages headed by Shonak assembled to perform a great 1,000-year sacrifice for the satisfaction of the Lord and his devotees.
Yeah.
So I was wondering if these sages, they had a program and a plan to, conduct a great sacrifice for so many years. How is it that they, agreed to be, diverted or take a different path and start hearing Krishna Katha from, Suta Goswami? What is there something that prompted them, or what changed their plan?
Yes, sure. Because they were performing these karmakanda sacrifices.
Yes.
That it's like in the 10th canto we'll hear these Brahmins who were doing these sacrifices, and the cowherd boys on behalf of Krishna and Balaram went to them asking for food, and they said, no time, this is serious business, go away. and they were concerned with all the technical aspects of the sacrifice to get the result they wanted. But these sages, they were doing these sacrifices for a long time, and the only result they got, that their bodies became black from the smoke, and no result. And then they were hearing the Bhagavatam again, because it was the second time spoken from Sutta Goswami, and they decided this is the real sacrifice. That is what we need in Kali Yuga. So they shifted, and they went to the sacrifice of hearing the Bhagavatam, but their heart was full of compassion. Therefore, they were ready to do 1,000-year sacrifice to help the people in Kali Yuga. But it had no much effect, their sacrifice, so they went to a different sacrifice, and that's what we're hearing here, that they wanted this sacrifice of hearing the Bhagavatam. Yeah, that's a good observation. Thank you, Nilamani.
Thank you. Thank you, Maharaj.
Mother Loka Pavani, please speak.
Hare Krishna. Please accept my humble obeisances.
My humble obeisance, Jai Prabhupada.
Jai Prabhupada. I wanted to know a little bit how much time did elapse between Shukadeva Goswami and Suta Goswami speaking, and if you have time and you find it appropriate, I would like to know how come that Balaram killed his father and then they elected him to speak. So.
Yeah, that the killing of Romarshana Sutra we will hear later in the Bhagavatam. That because it has to do because Balaram was not at the Battle of Kurukshetra, because he was on a good level with Duryodhana, who had the evil position. It's interesting that because Well, he was teaching Duryodhana, fighting with the club and so on, and they became good friends. And but Krishna was the opposite. It's interesting. They are both the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and one is a friend, and one is seen as enemy. That's to balance things out. But it's an interesting pastime. But when Balaram heard about his Battle of Kurukshetra, which could not be avoided, he became very disappointed, and he left to go on pilgrimage. And then he came to this, we will hear about that. He came to Namisaranya, and yes, and there. So that's long time after the Battle of Kurukshetra. How much time elapsed, I don't know, but it is after the Battle of Kurukshetra and after Maharaj Pariksit heard the Bhagavatam. So that's many years after that. And there Roma Arjuna Sutta, when Balaram arrived, all the sages stood up to welcome him, but Roma Arjuna Sutta, he sat on the Vyasasam and he did not get up. And so Balaram was thinking, he's going to speak the Bhagavatam about the Supreme Personality of Godhead, but he has no respect for the Supreme Personality of Godhead, so how can he speak? And he took a straw and just touched him, and he left his body. And then the sages said, yes, that's nice, but we just gave him the blessing for a long life. He was going to speak the Bhagavatam. You killed our Bhagavatam speaker. How is that? What now? And Balaram said, oh, no problem. I can bring him back alive if you like. And said, no, you are the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Whatever the Supreme Lord does is good. We don't want. But we wanted to hear the Bhagavatam. Who will speak the Bhagavatam now? And Balaram said, the son is as good as the father. And he blessed his son Sutta Goswami to speak the Bhagavatam, who had also studied all the scriptures and had a bless, and he got his blessing also of a long life. But it was after the Maharaj Pariksit heard the Bhagavatam, because Sutta Goswami, he was sitting with Maharaj Pariksit hearing the Bhagavatam from Sukadev Goswami. He was hearing that. So it must have been after that. And then the sages said, yes, you are the Supreme Personality of Godhead, but you have killed a Brahman. So please, for the example, to give the example to all humanity, you should atone now and go on pilgrimage. And then Balaram went on pilgrimage and went to many places in India for that. In Bharat Varsha. We will hear more about that in later of the Bhagavatam, but that is a summary of what I remember. Does that help?
Yes, thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, good. So Advaita Krishna Prabhu, you want to say something, to ask something, please?
Hare Krishna Maharaj.
Hare Krishna.
Mahabharata Essences, all good Prabhupada.
Prabhupada.
Nice to see you, nice to hear from you. And my question is related to the references you make, like, for example, to the 3rd canto or the 12th canto,
yeah,
or to the Tarko Pratishta verse in Mahabharata. Should we actually go and try to read them as well for this course, or?
This is for your reference. if you can read them if you like, but if you continue your Bhagavatam study, you will come at the 10th canto and come across all these things. But it's the point that I'm making here is that the sages are asking these questions, and these questions will not only be answered in the next chapter, in summary they will be answered in the next chapter, but they will further be expanded on in the whole Bhagavatam. That we will hear about in the 3rd chapter about the Purusha avatars, but the Purusha avatars are explained again in the 2nd canto, in the 3rd canto. And then we will hear about all these incarnations. The incarnations are described all over the Bhagavatam. So everything starts with these 6 questions here, and it's related to practically the whole Bhagavatam. We made a few references which were striking, but it's not that you have to study them now. We will come to all this.
Thank you.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Ratnam Prabhu, the last question.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, please
Hare
accept my
Krishna.
humble request.
Hare Krishna.
Maharaj, my question is from the purport, verse 7 purport.
Yeah.
It says that one can sit on the Vyasasana only after being conversant in all systems of philosophy, so that one can present fully the theistic view of Srimad Bhagavatam in defense of all of the system.
Yeah.
So question Maharaj is that in such a case that we should also study about or in detail about the Gautama Kanda, Kapila, Patanjali, Jaimini and Asvatara in detail, Maharaj?
No. We must know our philosophy. If you know our philosophy deeply, you will be able to defeat whatever philosophy. But it's a good exercise to defeat these 6 darshans. And Srila Prabhupada defeats them in the 10th canto, and I gave you the reference of the verse, the chapter, where you find all this information. That it's a nice exercise for us to go to that. But it's going too deep for this course. But the 6 darshans, they have also a connection with each other that leads to bhakti. Bhakti Sharmach many times explained that. Srila Prabhupada explained that also. But I would say this is, let's first try to understand our philosophy deeply. And then when you come at the 10th canto, you will read these other philosophies, and because you have absorbed and realized our philosophy, it will be easy to defeat them. So it's just it's a natural result of becoming nicely absorbed in the Bhagavatam and get realizations from that. Does that help, Ratnam?
Yes, Maharaj. So it's all this philosophy being described in Bhagavatam itself, Maharaj?
In the purports, Srila Prabhupada defeats these philosophies in this purport. Yeah. Okay. Vaidhyanath Prabhu, do you want to add something?
Additional question. Speaking about this Vyasasan and the preconditions to be able to sit on the Vyasasan. Who should be allowed to sit on our temple Vyasasans,
Yeah. I tell you my experience when I joined this movement, beginning of the 90s, only sannyasis could sit on the Asasan. That was in the temples, only sannyasis. And later, a few years later, it was only for sannyasis and Prabhupada disciples. And then later, it became only for Brahman initiated devotees. And now, even those who are not initiated, I see sitting on the Vyasasam sometimes. So that is interesting. But we will hear, especially in the beginning of the next chapter, about these qualities one must have to sit on the Vyasasam. And these are the qualities of the speaker of the Bhagavatam. And we will go very deep on that. And the Bhagavatam is quite strict about it. So from our perspective, we should not be too eager to sit on this Vyasasam. That one must have qualifications which are quite high according to the Bhagavatam. But I think the GBC says that for Brahman initiated devotees, that was there at some time. But the answer of the Bhagavatam is one must be qualified to sit on the Vyasasana and have the qualities of the speaker. And the speaker here is Sutta Goswami, and we will hear and study his qualities quite deeply in the next lessons. Does that help, Ratnam Prabhu?
Yes, Maharaj.
Okay. So, Pratik Prabhu, you wanted to say something before we finish the session of today? Yes?
Hare Krishna Maharaj, please accept my humble obeisance.
Hare Krishna.
I just wanted to continue in the line Vedanath Prabhuji was asking that like you said, many uninitiated devotees are also seen sitting on a Vyasasana. So if we are being forced or instructed by our authority to sit on Vyasasana and speak, then and if we are sure we don't have any of these qualities, so what shall be our what shall we do in that line?
You follow the local authorities. That's all right. They will take the responsibility. That's important. We follow authorities. But we on our own. So if you are invited to give class, it's fine. But don't think yourself qualified to sit on this Vyasasana. That's another point. And we will hear about these qualities. And after hearing these qualities, you can decide for yourself, am I qualified to sit on the Vyasasana? But yes, if you are being invited by authorities, that's all right. Okay, thank you. Good. We will now end this first class, and tomorrow we will continue further and discuss text 12 to 17. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.
Thank you very much, Maharaj. I am Rajendra Nandan Das. On behalf of VIG, we would like to invite Maharaj for this Bhaktivaibhava course. And I would like to briefly introduce Maharaj also. So Maharaj is from Belgium, and he was initiated by His Holiness Bhakti Charu Swami. And Maharaj has played various roles in ISKCON. He has served in various capacities. So academically speaking, he has been teaching many courses, Bhakti Shastri, Bhakti Vaibhava, and Bhakti Vedanta. And he has also served in the managerial capacities as a GBC secretary and also in ISKCON Board of Examinations and Sannyasa Ministry. And also from a academic perspective, he has a PhD in religious studies from University of Wales. So we are happy to have Maharaj's scholarly expertise to teach our Bhaktivaibhava students at VIG. Thank you so much, Maharaj, for accepting this service and honoring us.
Yeah, and thank you for inviting me, for giving me this opportunity. I've done many things in my life and in ISKCON. Nothing worked out. I'm a big nonsense, but I'm trying my best to serve you all. Hare Krishna. Jai Prabhupada. See you tomorrow.